Hello and welcome to this Mobalytics video. I'm your host Virkayu, and in this one I am going to explain to you how to stop failing your ganks so that both laners and junglers can actually get something out of them. Now the idea for this video is to cover it from the jungler and laner perspective, because guess what laners, it's not always the jungler's fault that the gank ends badly. They aren't always the reason that the enemy Draven walks away with a triple kill. Maybe you did something wrong. And junglers, if you're just storm raising into the enemy bot lane 2v1 while your bottom lane is kinda, making some tea, that's not exactly a good gank. So we're going to go over the fundamentals of ganking for a jungler, what you need to look for, same for laners, tie it all together, and then if you really enjoyed this video and would like to see a more in-depth application of it, we can perhaps release a laner and jungler perspective from the challenger pro player focus to show you the big differences that they have with their ganks versus what you might see in our typical games. So let's begin with a jungler, given that's my position, and then we will shift on to laners. I obviously play a lot of support as well, so I have good perspective in that sense also. The first thing we need to talk about is of course having that priority, that good lane position. Look at this example with a digital animation. Simply put, our bottom lane is in a neutral state facing the other one 2v2, very nice. We can simply roam on down the river, engage with our CC and get a kill. Now if the enemy laners are pushed more towards our side, shoving our laners in, that becomes a much easier gank to execute. However, if your laners are the ones shoving the enemy into their own tower, well now you have to change your approach. You can look for the tower dive, or you can look for a lane gank. The issue there is you must consider what champions you have, what champions they have, and what champions your bottom lane has. Do you have tower aggro dodging abilities like a Rek'Sai ultimate or an Elise repel? Does your bottom lane have good CC to actually dive? Maybe some tankiness, Leona, Nautilus. What if the enemy has a Janna or Zyra? That could end up going pretty badly for you. And I can tell you as a Zyra main, I love it when enemy laners try and dive me on the tower. I've gotten many triple kills just from the situation because of the snare, ultimate, and plant damage, and the enemy jungler just doesn't consider that kind of situation. So that's a lot of generalities thrown at you, but we really need to consider the anatomy of a gank. Firstly, let's use mid lane as an example because you have a lot of angles that you can use. Depending on the lane state, you want to adjust your angle of approach. If it's shoved in your favor, obviously you can come more directly from the river, you can flank from behind. But if your laner is shoving in, sure you can gank from the side, sure you can, EO over the wall as a Rek'Sai. But in order for a gank to work, you need to understand CC and damage output. For example, a Rek'Sai ganking for a Katarina level 3, that's easy. You flash W, Katarina does damage, ignites, Rek'Sai gets the chomp with the red buff, the enemy laner 99% will die unless they flash the initial W. If you're an Elise jungler and you want to gank for a Ryze, the Ryze uses his rune prison, Elise follows up with a cocoon, or vice versa, and that's enough time to burst him out with your damage. That's the concept of CC stacking. Laners and junglers, you both need to understand that. But what the jungler needs to understand is the minion position. Yes, you might see, hey, the enemy mid is shoving my mid laner in. I'm Nunu, I'm just gonna speed down the river with my predator, go all in, let's go. But what if there's a cannon wave shoving your mid laner into their tower? That's a lot of damage they cannot afford to walk into. There's a lot of damage you're all gonna take during the gank, and let me tell you, minions do a lot of damage early, and I see way too many mid and low MMR players force ganks into heavy minion waves, and that's why they actually end up dying in these situations. Next, you really must consider the location of wards. When you're clearing the jungle, as I always say on my main channel, look onto the minimap, watch laner positions. Yes, you can press your F keys. Yes, you can click on the minimap to look around, as you should while you are attacking monsters. Gromp really isn't that interesting. I know he's got a nice tongue, a bit of a chubby belly that you want to stroke, but you need to focus on the map. As soon as you see a laner move to one side of the other and disappear from vision, you can assume there's a ward. This means you can adjust your gank pathing accordingly in order to circumnavigate it. We talked about this in the 9 tips to jungle video on Mobalytics earlier in the season. Good jungle pathing, advanced jungle pathing is what makes a gank successful, because you know how to avoid vision, avoid detection, and create the element of surprise. Once you've done that, then the gank can unfold as you intend. And if you don't mix up your approaches for these ganks, you're increasing the likelihood that they fail, because the laner will eventually learn. Yes, I know Yasuo's sometimes don't. Yes, I know you can come from the same angle and kill them 100 times, but it's better to have that good habit of making sure you vary your approaches, circumnavigate vision that might be there, use your scanners to clear them on your way just in case they do. And that's another thing to consider. If you have been ganking a lane a lot and your lane is 2 levels up, what kind of lane assistance and level leads and item leads can you expect at your disposal? In that situation, your laner has a lead, you've ganked a lot, they probably don't have many sums up, it's very easy to 2v1. But a lot of bad junglers will not realize this. You think, hey, I've ganked bottom lane and mid lane a lot. Top laners, I recognize you. I'm coming, my friend. You see the lanes pushing in your favor, you think, hey, this is an absolute free gank, but you don't assess what the state of the lane is. You don't press tab and see, hey, my lane is 2 levels down, the enemy laner has 2 completed items, your laner is basically sitting on 3 Doran's blades. You know, why are you ganking this? A losing lane like this should not be ganked, but if you are going to gank it, you have to be prepared for the fact that you're on your own. If you yourself are a turbo-fed smurfing jungler, you know, go for it. If you can beat them 1v1, please do. However, if you die, and if you expected a lot of help from your laner, then this is a bad gank, then this is mistaken. Don't go and try and 1v1 an enemy top that's 2 levels ahead of you. It won't end well. And finally, when you are going for these ganks, the angles, the state, the tower dives, it doesn't matter. Please use pings. Communicate that you are arriving. There's nothing worse in this world than sitting at home, reading a book, playing some games, rainy afternoon, quiet, nothing's making a noise, your cat's sleeping for once, and your neighbor decides, you know, this is the day he's gonna revamp his kitchen in 12 hours straight. Treat laners with the same kind of respect. They're CSing, they're focusing on it. You know, for ADCs, this is difficult. Right-clicking and timing it, it's hard work. Mid laners have to trade, understand map pressure, track the junglers while they're CSing. They're not going to be paying attention to you always. Ping on my way, ping it a few times, let them know I'm coming. Type it in chat, guys, I am on my way. Then ping and say, let's go, let's go. Give a sense of urgency to your approach, your arrival. Make yourself feel valuable. Yes, I know we're verbally degraded at every turn and every loss is our fault, but good ganks ultimately make them change your opinion, so let them know you're coming and then abide by everything else we've said so far, and you'll be the better jungler. Now, laners, don't think I'm just rampaging on the junglers here. I'm gonna rampage on you as well. I don't need to talk about as much because obviously the junglers are the one that instigate the ganks, but you also do disrespect your minions. You just think, hey, my jungler's coming, let me walk into the cannon wave, and then you do it before the gank so you get chunked and then killed before the jungler even arrives. Please don't do that. Show a little restraint, understand the wave, tell your jungler, wait a second, let me clear this, and then we can go. I guess what we're saying is the early game minions can kind of act like the goblins in the Hubbard before they all get wiped out. Now, most importantly for a laner is your behavior. Do not start to play differently as a gank is coming. The last thing I need as a jungler is you've been freezing it, suddenly you walk in front of the wave and get all aggressive before I arrive, and then the enemy laner say, well, you're behaving weird, we're gonna back out because you're kind of creeping me out. That's the absolute worst thing you can do. If you want to behave like that, do it when your jungler isn't ganking so the laners think it's normal, and then when you do it the next time, they will be lured into a false sense of security. Now, this also ties into going in too early. Even if they don't bite on your behavior, even if your behavior is kind of normal and you go in way before the jungler gets there, if you are in any sort of losing matchup, if you're behind in any capacity and you go in too soon and your jungler isn't there, you will die 2v2, you will die 1v1. Do not let that happen. Much like the jungler has to show restraint on their ganks to wait for the minion waves to make sure you're in position, you have to do the same thing for the jungler. You know, top laners, I know you get very excited when a gank is pinged, but you know, wait for them to arrive. Don't go in storm raising thinking, yeah, I've been recognized, and then, you know, you die. It's not your jungler's fault. Wait a second, let the jungler get there, give them time. It's the same thing as the jungler's waiting for you to get back into lane before they engage. Make sure you guys fork together onto the enemy laner. That sounds weird, but it's really true. At the same time, you want to arrive so that you can stack your CC, burst your damage together, time your approaches right, and get the kills. Now, timing your approach is one thing, yes? I mean, when you get there, we have the gank, that's great, but there's no point timing your approach with your jungler well if you just use your 12-second cooldown ability 2 seconds before the gank began. How are you going to burst them out? How are you going to actually get the kill if you don't have abilities to use? So trading is great, obviously, we love it when people trade well. Just don't trade before a gank. Especially gap closers, especially CC and long cooldown abilities. If your jungler ping they're coming, show a little bit of restraint. And yes, it really is most important for CC abilities. Whereas a jungler, if I'm coming up and I'm at least in a Graves and I don't have hard CC, but you as a laner do, and you waste it before the gank, that's how you tilt a jungler off the face of the earth. Especially if the gank would have resulted in a kill, tower plates, and objectives. We are junglers, nothing gets us more excited than a herald after a gank, or a dragon after a gank, or 5 tower platings after a gank. Or, you know, having a good gank and then stealing his whole jungle and getting the dragon. You see, now we're talking. But if you use your CC ability as I'm arriving and we don't actually get any kills from that, yeah, we're gonna be a little bit upset. But again, laners, please. Junglers, yes, you must pay attention to the map, you must track summoner spells, you must look at fights. But laners, it is on you to track those summoners. You have a 2v2 fight, you come out on top, let your jungler know, hey, flashes are down, no sums bot. Your mid laner, oh, by the way, jungler, I burned the mid laner's flash, they also have no TP. Okay, now we're talking, free gank for the jungler. However, sometimes ganks are just bad. You're waiting to go back, you just need a few more gold for the BF sword, you don't have any summoners up yourself, let your jungler know, please don't gank right now, I'm going back to base. Maybe you're Malphite top lane, you're waiting for that ultimate and you're 75% of the way there, let your jungler know, don't come now, can you wait a little bit, maybe steal his Krugs, show a bit of patience, and then we can definitely get a kill with my ult. Maybe you even had a trade, it went pretty well, maybe it didn't go so well, you kind of chunked, you're backing off, your jungler thinks, let me come and clean up, let me help you, ping your HP and your mana, say, listen, I have nothing up, I cannot help you. And that's the point. Communication from a jungler perspective to laners, and from a laner perspective to junglers is absolutely vital. The more information that's given, the more we can make better decisions. When you can make better decisions, you will have better outcomes. Finally, laners, yes, I know for most of you, junglers have no idea about lane states, when to push and shove, when to freeze, a few pings here, a few words there. All of this from a jungler and laner perspective is the difference maker between good ganks and failed ganks. The understanding of timing of approach, of minion waves, of CC stacking, of junglers avoiding vision, of laners communicating what summoners are up. If all junglers and all laners do everything in this video, I guarantee everyone will see a much higher ganking success rate. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you were able to enjoy and learn something. Please do like, share, and comment if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to this great Mobalytics channel for all those videos coming very soon. I've been your host, Virkayu. You can find me on YouTube and on Twitch. And as always, I will see you all in the next video.